Hello, my name is Brett Hoffman, and today I'm here to present my finished level for the game Celeste as part of Game 310's very own first of two major level design projects. In this video, I'm essentially just going to be playing through the level as a sort of full overview of most of the content you can expect from it. And on top of that, I will be talking a lot about the design decisions made for a lot of the actual mechanical stuff, as well as a little bit of the aesthetics behind the level, as well as some of the pitfalls or new things I discovered working with the fan-made Celeste level design engine. This level is greatly based around the mechanics seen in Chapter 5 of the main game of Celeste. There's about 6 strawberries for the player to be able to collect, spaced out in a way that players are not allowed to collect all of them in one run due to there being multiple paths at one point in the level, similar to how Chapter 6 works. Here in this first room, as I've been going through it, it's a lot of reminders of how the individual mechanics works. It shows off that there's going to be a lot of red bubbles. There's going to be the dash blocks, as they're called. A lot of these first rooms also introduced torches to the player and have a lot of the dark side aesthetics put on there. Just the pillars. Background has a lot of holes in it in this room with a lot of vines peeking through. The main puzzle of this room is of course just the fact that this dash block provides 2 springs that are actually there to harm you. And there are a few ways to deal with this, I believe. But the primary one that I tend to use in playtesting the level is just grabbing onto the side of the block and then jumping in the red bubble. And here we get to the major crossroad of the level, where they're able to head down this corridor to be able to go to the lower section. But real quick, I just want to go ahead and take a detour and show a little bit of the higher area. Most players, I would expect, would go to the bottom area since it is variably easier, but has 1 less strawberry for the player to collect compared to the top side, which has 2, one of which is given just for completing the top area. This puzzle here is just a matter of being able to test your reaction times at first, and then just landing on this platform. Have a few extra wall bounce jumps there, and then get a strawberry with a red bubble to get over to this side. This specific puzzle is also set up in a way that if players are experienced with a lot more of the advanced technical maneuvers like the hyper dash, they are able to get that strawberry much more easily if, say, they wanted to speedrun it or something. Pretty easily get back down here. Just a couple of well-placed dashes. Shouldn't be too frustrating for players to be able to go between the 2 areas. It's just meant to be a simple check to enable them to go wherever they want to. Again, as I said, in this video I'm only going to be showing the bottom path, but I will go ahead and step out of the in-game screens to be able to show the top path as well in the editor. This room is just sort of an introduction to the fact that there are going to be a room or 2 with water mechanics as well as ones with touch switches. As you can see in this room, there's also some on the right over there. The puzzle is just supposed to be sort of a test with springs. Very simple. You just dash at the apex of the right spring, and then you can dash up to this wall and easily climb up. It's worth noting that this right side of the screen We'll actually give the player a checkpoint, since this is one of the harder challenges that players might have to deal with on that screen. Just due to how close some of the spikes can be, and the fact that this bottom area is not supposed to be a huge test for reaction times. Coming up on the end of this crossroad here, there's just a small room, sort of testing the player's navigation amidst the dark. There's a couple different ways to get up to this button here. We'll place dash straight up. Won't make you hit the spikes, but gets you to the perfect height to get up there. So players can choose to use that or to climb. An extra strawberry here that isn't terribly difficult to get. And we come into the connecting room. And here is where I'm going to tab out real quick and just give a bit of an overview of the top area from the editor. On second thought, I am actually going to go ahead and do a quick playthrough of the top side as well, since I'm able to teleport Madeline around here in the editor itself. But here in this first room, the player is going to have to use this block to propel himself over the gap without touching those spikes at the very end. I am a bit rusty at this, but it is not the most difficult with the right setup. That jump is another hyper, but I believe it can also be done with just a simple super dash, which is the same thing, but you don't do a jump at the start. A little bit easier to pull off. This room is full of swap blocks done in pairs, allowing the rotating spikes that are trying to prevent you from hitting these switches there. Not the most difficult puzzle, but definitely one to test your reaction times. This room also built to be able to be done with hyper dashes or super dashes. Again, this top side is supposed to be a lot more challenging. Awards you an extra strawberry just for completing it. I'm currently not being great at the game, so forgive my mechanical skill a little bit. The strawberry is a little rough to get sometimes. It's meant to be challenging up here, so deaths are expected. Say an experienced player shouldn't see too many deaths in these rooms. Say maybe like 30 tops. I intend players to be able to get that strawberry by going from the top bubble down, since there are no spikes in the way there, and going from the bottom bubble purposefully breaks that platform just by you gliding across it. So now would be a great time for me to talk a little bit about the experiences I've had designing a lot of the puzzles for Celeste in this level. I would say this is probably one of my favorite editors to use, but it certainly is not the most intuitive, especially in regards to finding out what kind of puzzles are fun. It is a lot of playtesting and trying to understand the mechanics of the game through and through. Being able to understand, like, oh, this is how far the player should be put with this particular mechanic. This is fun for players based on, like, this kind of challenge, whether it be, like, reactionary, mechanical, timing, sometimes even just straight-up puzzles. make those. One of the things I was thinking about testing, but was a little bit, I guess, too convoluted to be able to put in, was the fact that buttons in this game, like this one, will only activate the nearest door they are to, and that applies to any closed doors in the level, or in the given screen, that is. So being able to place a number of buttons and having players like logically figure out which ones to open when, so they don't open any dummy doors, is a puzzle for them to be able to explore. Just for the sake of pacing and the fact that I'm dying a lot, I'm going to teleport myself back into this joint room. That was the last of the top side rooms that I was just in. But this major room, I'd like to talk about it a little bit more in detail, because this is supposed to be the room where the main cutscene of the level happens. But through plenty of testing and research into the level editor I'm using here in Celeste, I was not able to figure out how to make a unique cutscene for the life of me. Even things as simple as making text boxes for like Madeline and other characters like Theo to be able to speak from requires going through completely different files for the game and essentially making new ones from scratch that you can reference inside the editor, which is why a lot of the ones that the editor, or pretty much all the ones that the editor gives you as like drop-down options when you say like, oh, I want an event to happen here, are ones from the game, and through testing actually cause a crash if you try and implement them in a place that they're not supposed to exist. Coming into the last little bit of the level here, there is a challenge for the player to be able to get at least 3 of 4 keys from different rooms here in this last section of the temple. Each room tried to focus on a little bit of different stuff from other areas in the temple. This room, of course, is based on swap blocks. Specifically made it so that way players are not able to come back from the top here. I don't imagine that players would be able to, but it's also something where I wouldn't want them to say be able to do that, I suppose. Coming into the bottom right room here. Keys don't go away if you die while you have them, so it's safe for players to be able to pick up all the keys first if they want to. This room is fairly easy, especially for someone that is fairly well seasoned with Celeste. But the main challenge here for simpler players would just be being able to react to that. It's a pretty easy one, and being able to react to those spikes up there. Since unlike the last bubble, it does not actually go down. I guess that's a good example of showing you that the keys stay with you when you die. A lot of the aesthetics in here, again, just specifically limited myself to the stuff from the Chapter 5 dark areas. But as you'll notice, the background of the level is actually not the Chapter 5 dark one. I instead chose to use the resort backside for every part of the map that is located inside this temple, because from combining both the Lake Temple B and the Resort Brick, as its background is called, it is just personally better looking for a sort of ruined temple feel I was trying to get with this level. This last room just goes over a lot of water stuff. Essentially have 3 switches to be able to hit that are all being guarded by different sets of spinners. And ones that were going slow in a sort of cross formation, so that players had to angle themselves right to get to it. These rotating spinners down here that aren't actually that hard, I'm just being really bad. And then this top spinner up here, I was originally going to have 2 that were going in different ways, but after testing I found that that was a little too frustrating at times, especially since I personally am not a huge fan of timing challenges. Chapter 3 is my least favorite in Celeste for that reason. But, yeah, I spent a lot of time on this map just trying to get really comfy with the level editor, since this is one that I want to be able to use in the future, because it's very well fleshed out. I think the only things that I would really want to be able to do with the level editor that are not there already is just having an easier way to be able to implement things like cutscenes, and as we'll see here at the end of the level, I'm not able to create a proper level ending, so the player is brought here back to the outside of the temple on what is supposed to be sort of like a secure side of it. They can only get to from inside the temple, I suppose. Again, there's not a very easy way to convey that kind of information to the player outside of things like breakable walls that you can only get to, or that like you're supposed to break to be able to get out of the temple. A lot of rubble and like walling back here to show that this is sort of enclosed. And a little altar to show that the heart is supposed to be here. And this is the end of the level. Collecting the heart, of course, also has a bit of an error tied to it. I wasn't able to change the text of that, which theoretically should be easier, but was something that I wasn't able to do, and that is unfortunate for me. But given the fact that I was also not able to make a proper ending to the level, since all of the main side, like all the main levels of Celeste, use a unique end level event that I cannot implement into this level without a crash, or a red heart, which I was not able to put in, surprisingly, without a mod, which is weird. So I chose to omit it, and the player is just given a blue heart at the end of the level and supposed to, I guess, intuit that this is the end of the level. Anyway, I guess sort of a closing statement is that Celeste, when you really dig into how all of its mechanics works together and what makes the game really fun, level designing for this game is both a joy and a curse at the same time, it feels like, because so many things can go wrong very, very easily, but when they fit together and feel good to play through, it is rewarding from a design standpoint, I'd even say, like being able to figure out a lot more about swap blocks in this room specifically, like how the attached crystal spinners work, and the fact that blades on rotating tracks will actually stick to blocks if the center of them is like on top of a swap block. Just a lot of things like that makes it really, really fun to design for this level editor. And for a first level in the game Celeste, I'm definitely going to be trying to make more on my free time. This was a really fun project for me, and I hope you enjoy this little presentation. That is all.